This episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast is brought to you in part by Xero. Xero is a powerful cloud accounting software that improves efficiencies across your practice. With all client data stored on a single unified ledger, you and your clients can easily access and collaborate on the same set of books. Xero's advisor tools and automation solutions reduce time-consuming manual tasks and put data entry on autopilot. Work faster and more efficiently than ever before with Xero. Visit xero.com/accounting insiders to learn more.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Accounting Insiders podcast. My name is Gary DeHart. I'm the host of the Accounting Insiders podcast and the publisher, managing partner of Insightful Accountant. My guest today is Julie Smith of Empower CPA, which you can't use, but she is also, I'm going to read off of your LinkedIn profile, practice manager at Harper Company CPAs, the co-founder of Pure Tax LLC, founder of Empower CPA. We were joking about that a second ago. The Julie trademark, which I'm not sure what that is, but we'll talk about it. And the co-host of Empowering Entrepreneurs podcast. Julie, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you taking a
Thanks.
few minutes to have a discussion.
Yeah. Thanks,
So,
Gary.
so to tee up oh, and also what you don't have on there is a regular contributor to Insightful Accountant. So Julie also has a webinar she does with Will Hill every other month on practice management and practice management talks. So we certainly appreciate that collaboration as well. But thanks for being here. I'm going to read something real quick on your LinkedIn profile, which will kind of tee up the conversation that we're going to have, which is about practice management, about practice managers, which is what Julie is and what she does and what she teaches. So, and there's a couple of things that we'll get to. One is, when do you need a manager, a practice manager? We're going to talk about fractional practice managers and kind of the role and the skill set that a practice manager needs to bring to the table. But on your LinkedIn profile, you say, I teach people how to get out of their own way. Accountants have been running their firms the same way for decades, yet the needs of clients have evolved. Entrepreneurs and business owners need and deserve more than tax returns and financial statements from their CPA firm. I fully agree with that, by the way. They need advisors who can help them proactively, 100%. They also need a partner who is able to move beyond the financial side of their business and provide strategic operational advice that helps them move forward and grow. So I am all in on all of that I just read, and there's a couple more things on there too, but that's really the core of what we're going to try to talk about here. And before we dive all the way into the conversation, just give a little bit more of your background and your history and how you ended up in a CPA firm.
Right. Definitely didn't see that coming if you would have asked me to predict where I would be at this point in my career.
Yeah.
I, got my undergrad, played soccer in college, which, shaped kind of who I am and how I think in today, and went straight into corporate America. I really wanted to climb that corporate America ladder and, ended up getting linked up with Glenn. We ended up starting an entire new firm and wanted to really build a firm of the future. When I kind of came in here, it kind of felt like the industry was doing things that had been done maybe even before I was in college, right? It just felt like we could really revolutionize this. And how do we do this? And how do we build it from the ground up? And, I think if Glenn was sitting next to me, he would say we had to pivot a lot. As entrepreneurs, you make a decision and then you kind of backtrack on that decision to kind of make it better. It's like one step back, three steps forward sometimes.
Yeah.
And we really wanted to build the firm. And as we were going through that, I just, we started meeting different people in the industry and started, sharing our story and what we were doing and how we were doing it and how we were, doing it differently. And I just had this strong need to help provide that shortcut of how we built our firm and what we did. And, if I could provide those pivots that we could avoid some of those pivots that we had to do and people could do it in a very, intense manner and jump forward. That's really where this, the whole Julie and Empower CPA and everything like that kind of stemmed from was, hey, if I can do it at Harper and Company, why can't we help everyone? I've always been of the mindset there's enough room at the whole table for everyone, and just always wanted to, lead and teach in that manner. And so corporate America served me so well. It gave me some of those rigid backgrounds that I think you need when you go to make change, when you go to lead change. Um, then I've also had to, take a step back, small business, like some of that rigidness doesn't always work. So I've had to pivot, myself, but corporate America definitely served me well. I got my master's degree, made a lot of great, connections, and we started this firm. Like I said, it's 8 years ago, and off to the races we go.
Great. And you said Glenn, that's Glenn Harper, is that
Yes.
right? Okay. And what's the just give the kind of high level on the firm itself. Is
Yeah.
there what is do you guys have a specialty or a niche that you work in, and how big's the firm?
Yes.
Whatever it is that you can share just about the firm.
So when we started, we've tripled our revenue with the same amount of people. And I think that's a really, that speaks volumes to what you are capable of inside of your firm with that right mindset. And we have 12 people. We're located in Columbus, Ohio, and our niche is entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And we really love serving, those business owners.
And so it's whether they're entrepreneur in restaurants or in mechanics or
Yeah.
media or whatever, you don't care. You just want the small business entrepreneur who has that entrepreneurial mindset.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
guess they don't have to be small either, right? They could be bigger, but
Yeah, well, we kind of take anything and everything. And I think the key to it that we've kind of niched down to is we know what our right fit client is, and we've kind of defined that. The thing is we lead with that when we meet clients. And I think a lot of people in the industry they just want to help, and it comes from such a good place, but that doesn't set the rest of our team up for success. So we've really said, okay, we want to serve the entrepreneurs, 1 to 5 owners. We want them to kind of be able to fit, we want them to be able to fit into our firm and how we do things. And so we set those expectations right up front. They even get like, how you give your employees handbooks, our clients get a handbook as well,
oh
just
boy,
to make sure that everyone is of the same understanding, because I think that sets everybody up for success.
absolutely right. And do they actually read the handbook?
That's up to them whether or not
Yeah,
they read it. But if I have to cite it, I know that I gave it to them.
right. You have to, and you can ask some little questions here and there and go, oh, it's in the handbook. It's in
Yeah.
the handbook. Have you ever had anybody say, oh, I saw that in the handbook?
It's funny, people do. I think they read it out of pure, like it's just something so different than
Mm,
what people expect. So I do think a lot of people at least flip through it, whether or not they read it, to retain it. There are some little nuggets in there that, are like Glenn or my quotes that, you know, they'll say, oh, I did read that. Oh, you did say
yeah,
that. Like, so yeah, I think,
great.
I think they do.
Yeah, and as a small business owner, I mean, that's really what I think most of us are looking for is look, you've got your specialty. You're really good at what you do, Mr. or Mrs., CPA accounting firm. I'm really good at what I do. So if we can bring our skill sets together and you can really guide me in growing my business, I mean, to me, that's a key part of of a firm's responsibility.
Mhm.
It's not about, yeah, okay, great. You can do bookkeeping. I mean, that's fine. Anybody can do bookkeeping. And I don't say that to minimize the value of bookkeeping. I say that to enhance the value that a firm can bring through the consulting work or through the advisory, because now it's advisory, right? This week we're calling it advisory, but
Yeah.
the advisory work that comes out of that, all the work that you're doing. So, so let's drill down on the jobs and the role of a practice manager.
Yeah.
What would you, what's the day-to-day responsibilities of a practice manager?
I think it's whatever the firm needs, if I'm being 100% honest, because it changes day to day, season to season. But I really think it's listening. I
Mm,
think I spend the majority of my day listening, whether it's to clients, right, who are venting about an issue, but it's really about the employees in my team. What are they facing? What's on the front lines? How can I alleviate that? Is it really a problem, or is it them just venting, right? And how do I provide the solution from my end to make sure that we're the most efficient team with the best technology with the best clients. That's really where I drive into. I think that in this role, you have to have such a high EQ too, right? Like there's many times where if I'm listening to what everybody's saying, I'm like, man, our firm, it's not great, right?
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's just them venting, and it's really allowing them to have a safe space and knowing that if they need something, I'm going to come through on that, whatever it is. We're going to provide the solution, we're going to automate, I'll have the tough conversation with them in there, but I always will have their back per se and make sure
Hmm.
that they're set up for success.
And do you have a lot of, you mentioned client engagement. Do you have a lot of touch points with clients?
You know, I think it ebbs and flows. As I've been able to do this and we've got different clients, it's been really interesting to talk to clients about their operations or how do they hire a Julie, right? As they grow and scale their business. And that's just been a unique thing that Harper and Company has been able to offer. I love to talk to entrepreneurs and what they're going through. It's a lonely world out there for them. So if we
Yeah,
can provide a space where they can kind of, be able to speak freely, then, I think that makes them be more successful.
sure. That's great. So key skills for a practice manager, you said one, EQ, right?
Yeah, I really think that high EQ, but I
Yeah.
and I think listening. And I
Hmm.
think being able to differentiate between venting and a real problem. And then
Is
really being
Yeah.
able to problem solve.
Mm, okay. Is and I guess gosh, there was something I was writing, so I forgot what I was going to say. It was around key skills. Oh, organization. I mean, is that just a given that you have to be highly organized?
Yeah, you got to kind of be highly organized. You got to kind of know, have all the ducks in a row. I think for me in my role, it's how to be proactive too. It's like to think ahead. I'm already, thinking beyond tax season, beyond extension season, end of year, what are we doing? How are we doing it? What needs to be done? What tech, I already have new technology that's going to roll out here after tax season.
Mm,
But all of those things have to be done way prior to when you want to do them, right? And really well thought out. So, definitely that proactive approach to that problem solving.
yeah. So technology you mentioned. Would you say a practice manager is a core part of that technology decision?
Oh yeah. I believe they are the key decision maker because they bridge the gap between kind of that owner and that employee, right? And so what the employee wants and what the owner wants are sometimes two very different things. And sometimes these two people don't necessarily talk to each other well, right? They can communicate, but they can't hear each other, right? And so
Yeah.
this person is able to kind of bridge that gap between the two and be able to make a really informed best decision for the firm.
Hmm. So at what point, firm size or employee size, does a firm need to really start thinking, wow, I need a Julie?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, and I think it just differs. I think once the firm owner feels like their day to day operations are being bogged down by their internal operations, it's time to, either, you know, get someone fractional or hire
Yeah.
someone full time. And again, that just depends again on your what does that day to day look like? What is that firm owner doing? What can they delegate? What can get off their plate? What is the pain point? Sometimes I feel like we go into firms and the pain point sometimes isn't always the day to day that's really bogging them down. It's that accountability.
Mm,
The firm, sometimes the owner is their time, they're unable to hold their team to where they want to be accountability wise. And that's where sometimes this role can come in and really change that firm and shift it in a way that just the firm owner is just not capable of.
is that because the firm owner is doing his job, day-to-day job, or he's,
Yeah.
maybe he's focused on business development, or maybe he's focused on churning out as many tax returns as he can. It's just that as a firm owner, I'm really good at doing, again, advisory work, or I'm really good at business development, or I'm amazing at taxes, but I'm not necessarily a good manager. Is that what you're seeing or what you're saying?
I think it's a case by case basis. One of the first questions I ask when I sit down with a client is, what is your goal?
Yeah.
What is your goal with, going to hire a practice manager or hire someone for, maybe part, whatever the case is, what is your goal? And, I just talked to someone yesterday and he went through this whole thing and I said, okay, so time out. Let me just wrap this up for you. What I hear is that you want to be the surgeon of the firm. So you want to come in when you're needed, and that's all you really want to do. And right now he's doing the bookkeeping, he's doing the taxes, he's managing the people, he's doing it
Yeah.
all, the technology. And so I think it's really understanding what's the goal of the firm owner. Do they want to be an
Mm.
owner operator or an owner investor? What do they want to do? And sometimes they don't know and they need, a little bit of time to really think that over. But I think once you understand their goal, then you can kind of set up that job description and those expectations of what that person's going to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We're kind of going through that, or I have been over the past couple of weeks just with our company, and that is, we have goals. They're not really firm goals. I don't know that they're actually written down anywhere. We've had conversations, my business partner and I, we've had conversations, but it's not written out anywhere, and we don't have, who was Jim Collins, right? We don't have a BHAG,
Yeah.
um, and if you don't know where you're going, you're going to get somewhere, right? So, maybe where you want to be, maybe not. So when you go into, do you follow any kind of particular like a process? Like I've been looking at scaling up lately. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're familiar with that one, but
Yeah.
that's the one I've been working in the past couple of weeks, and it's really good. It certainly gets you kind of focused
Yeah.
on the key aspects of the business, right? Is there anything like that that you follow or that you bring into firms when you're working with them?
So I definitely have my own process. I love systems and processes, as you can imagine. But yes, I go through kind of it's really, having that interview with the firm owner, really firming up those firm goals, what they're looking for, backing into the steps, how are we going to achieve those? What are the timelines? Who are the key components? Do you have them in place? Do we have the right people in the right seats at the time? It's going through that whole slew of things and really digging deep.
Yeah.
Most firm owners don't think that, they're so focused on what they're doing, or that, as we all know, we have so many timelines that we have to go on, that they rarely take their kind of head out of the bucket to be able to say, like, ooh, you're right. That's a pain point, but I haven't wanted to deal with it. Or
Mm.
I know I'm missing this, but I don't know what to do about it. Or, whatever the case is. And so really making them, yeah, I love to go through a whole process. It's a whole interview process. And it's not just the firm owner, because sometimes the firm owner's reality is completely different than the team's. And it's really understanding, like I said, both of those and the pain points that they're both going through. And how do we bridge the gap to get the best outcome to really, set your firm apart?
Yeah. And so you kind of wear, well, as I was reading off on your LinkedIn profile, you wear multiple hats, right? You got
Mhm.
the firm manager, or is that the right term? Yeah, practice manager, at Harper. Um, and then the the fractional side, which I don't know if we stated that, but
Yeah.
you also are a fractional, outsourced firm manager or practice manager. What does that look like? And how do I, as a firm, how do I know, okay, you know what, it's time for me to bring in an outsourced or fractional? Because that's a really good first step, right, in
It's a
trying
really
to
good
build the firm
first
out.
step. And I think then you're able to kind of identify, do you need someone full time? Or is it something where, maybe I'm working with the firm owner and one other key employee, and we're starting to get some systems, processes, some accountability in place. We're identifying pain points, how we're going to do it. Or sometimes I, come in and I can kind of help hire someone and, train them. And then they can use me as a resource as they're kind of going through, their process. So I really think it's all about the understanding the pain points. I think I've come in at so many different levels on so many different firms that, some people are like, well, I only need 1 hour a month. That's all I need, and we get into it and I'm like, well, we're going to have to change our scope. Like, I think this is more like 10 hours a week, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's just really, if people have enough awareness to know they need it, it's then like, okay, let's define that. Because usually when they come to me, their definition of what they need is different than what we get out of it at the end of, kind of our process. So
Yeah.
I think if you have enough awareness to say, like, I need something, something's not working, how do we fix it? That's when, you got to reach out, you got to figure that out.
And do you do that just with accounting firms, or would you also go to, like, I don't know, if one of the Harper clients had a need for
Yeah.
a manager, is that something that you would scope out into as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've done that a couple times, just here internally, and I think one of the things I love to do, and it's a passion, is building something. And so if you can give me something and I can build it, that's what I love to do. It doesn't necessarily, the industry is indifferent to me. To me, it's all kind of the same systems and processes.
Yeah.
Obviously, being here at Harper and Company for over 10 years, I've got that industry experience.
And that so so going back to the question about when do I need a fractional, it's kind of sum it up, is it when the pain gets so bad? Probably need it before the pain gets there, but that's when you absolutely are at the point of, yeah, I've got to bring somebody in. But also, like you said, depends on the goal, right? If I'm
Mhm.
happy doing whatever, 250, 500 tax returns a year, whatever it is, um, then maybe I don't need that. But if I want to grow a firm that is sellable, and that's one thing that kind of whole scaling up process kind
Mhm.
of got me thinking about is, what is the exit strategy? I started this business 12 years ago and have never really thought about what's the exit strategy. And we've talked about it, but do we sell it, or would I rather just get a paycheck and be a, absent owner? Um, there's a lot
Which
to
I
be
think
said
goes
for
back
both,
to that owner investor, owner operator, and where you're
right?
at and what you want to do. Like that's two big forks in the road that you could kind of take.
So then, do you do any type of, I know you obviously do consulting work around this, but do you do any, like, 2-day offsites for where you have
Yeah.
3 or 4 or 5, 10 firms represented? Do you do anything like that? I probably
I've
should know
never
the
held,
answer to that question,
no,
but I
I've
don't.
never held like a group. I think that, Will and I have talked about that several times about getting, like-minded people together to be able to hash out what's going on in the industry because
Yeah,
we're all going through the same things and we can learn from each other. But no, I've never done that. But that's
yeah.
a goal. So,
Yeah, it's funny because the whole scaling up process, this friend of mine, has used it forever in business, and now he's one of their, consultants or whatever they call themselves. And my challenge with it is that it's definitely built for bigger firms.
mhm.
It's built for firms that have bodies that they can throw things at. You know, we're a small business. We don't have bodies that we can throw things at. So there's all these responsibilities and roles that somebody has to fill. So I did have a conversation with him about what we just talked about, and that was, can you put 10 people in a room or 5 people in a room and go through the process, even though they're in different companies? I think you can. And I think
Mhm.
because again, ultimately what I, as a business owner, need is somebody to kind of help me raise my head, find that one or two things that need to be focus on it, and then hold me accountable on a, regular basis, whatever that basis may be. So yeah, as you and Will talk about that, if we can support that at all, let me know.
Yeah.
Um, and then so everybody, the original question was, when does a firm need one? I would say the firm really needs one the day they start their business, because it would help them build the business with a plan in mind, right? With that end goal, whatever that end goal is, versus starting the business, put my shingle out. Now I'm going to do what I do. Yes, that might work, but it's not going to get you where you want to go in the long term. Back on technology too.
Yeah.
So I wrote that down. And do you find when you go into a firm and when you're working with firms, do you find a lot of similarities in the problems that they have with technology?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think I find a lot of problems. I usually can pinpoint those in the first couple hours of being in a firm and just talking to a couple people. And, I can usually dive pretty quick. I went into a firm, man, it might have been 2 years ago now. And within the first 2 hours, I identified a 500,000 of revenue they were missing out on.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was because they were using different technology to do different things and things weren't talking to each other like they thought they were. So once you talk to one person and you talk to the other person and I'm like, these aren't adding up. Yes. And I think, you know, definitely, I think this industry, for whatever reason, we have all this technology. But usually, if you don't have a practice manager or someone who's taking the reins of it, it's not being utilized to its highest degree. You are not
Yeah.
getting use out of the technology that you're paying for, right? They've bought this technology to solve one pain point, but that maybe it could solve 20. They just
Right.
haven't taken the time to figure out, and maybe it could talk to another piece of technology that you're using, or whatever it is. And so I really think this role, this position really has to take the reins of that, because as we know, the firm owners, they're buying things based on one pain point that's eliminating, and they're not even looking holistically, one, at what they have, but at even what they're buying in that moment. And I say the one thing when I go to look at technology, buy technology, it has to make my firm more efficient. Number one, like,
Mm.
and if you can't get past that, I'm not even going to look at it. We have used our technology, everything talks to each other. We've built rules and alerts and all kinds of things in it. And I can tell you, our technology provider, I could teach a class better than any of their support people,
Right.
because you just have to take the time to learn it, to understand it. And I think technology can serve this industry so well and creating efficiency that they don't even know about. But
Mm.
it's back to that resource of time, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. And I look at our technology spend, and it's like it's painful. It really
Hmm.
is. And we don't even, I mean, we don't have that many technology solutions, but it's painful when you look at how much you spend on it. And then if you really sit back and look at what you spend on it and the level of use that you get out of it, like you were saying, I mean, you know, it may do 10 things, you're probably using it for two. And
Well,
I
and
know
Gary,
that's the case with us.
to that point, it's fun to take firms through just a simple worksheet of how much does a tax return really cost? Because they'll say, well, it doesn't, I'm definitely have a profit on this $200 tax return. Okay, well, okay, how much is your tax program? How many tax returns do you do? Okay, how much is your front desk person? How much does your phone cost? What's your rent? What's your salary to review the return? What's the salary of the actual preparer? Oh, you print those out. So now you need a copier, or now you need, like, just to think it through like that. And I
Yeah,
think if firms would just sit down to like think that through, and if I just named, the tip of the iceberg of what a tax return actually
right.
costs, right? This industry cannot do a tax return for $200.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And so
there's my
is
soapbox for the
yeah,
day.
I'm on my soapbox. So is the solution you got to raise your rates, or is the solution you have to get more efficient, or you have to do a lot more returns that you don't make any money on? That third one's a joke, but
Yeah, I mean, I think this industry has to understand their value. And I think that's what it comes down to is, you know, one of the things is like, tax preparer, tax reviewer, how many years experience do you have that you can do a return in a half hour? How long did that take you to be able to do that? And I think it's just changing the mindset of the industry of, you know, the quick question, the easy tax return. Well, why is it easy and why is it a quick question?
mhm,
Because that quick question to someone like myself, I have zero clue on what type of retirement plan you should be doing to maximize it. You walk in Glenn's office, he can answer that question in under a second before you've even finished your sentence. But why can he do that? He has 30 years experience. How much
right,
did that cost him? And I think it's
exactly.
just it just goes back to understanding, everyone's got to understand their value and what they bring to the table, and you've got to believe in yourself and be confident sitting across from a client on what you can do and what you've built.
I like it. All right. Since it is tax season, we are recording this on March the 20th, 2025. It is tax season. I want to be respectful of your time because it's tax season. And so let's wrap this up. how do people find you? If somebody said, wow, this is, I need, at minimum, I need a fractional practice manager. How does somebody
Yeah.
find Julie?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Julie Smith. I know you might need DNA to find me, but I'm out there. Empower CPA, we kind of joked about the Ohio Society of CPAs that I couldn't use it because I'm not, a registered licensed CPA. So I have been using Sulet Consulting. You can find me on harpercpaplus.com website. Um, you know, any way you can find me, I will respond.
Yeah, and her LinkedIn profile is linkedin.com/n/the-Julie. But you know what we didn't touch on, and I said we were leaving, but I can't leave without touching on this. Empowering Entrepreneurs podcast. Give us
Yeah.
1 minute about what that's all about.
So that all started in COVID. And I just realized that entrepreneurs are lonely, and I wanted to create a sense of community around the entrepreneur. And what was meant to be for our clients turned into something worldwide.
Mm.
And it's been such a fun joy. We interview all kinds of entrepreneurs from all countries. And it's all about the journey of how they got to where they are, where they're going. And, provide, obviously there's some tidbits in there for some
Yeah.
shortcuts that we could all use.
Okay. And how often does that do you release
Twice a month.
episodes? Okay. I've not listened to it. I will add that to my, and how long are they typically?
They're usually around 30, 45 minutes.
Okay. But put it on 1.5 or 2x speed and boom, it's
Yeah.
half that, right? So, all right, well, great. Well, Julie, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking a few minutes here to have this conversation. If anybody wants to get in touch with Julie, find her on LinkedIn. Again, linkedin.com/n/the-Julie. And I think we've got a practice management talks in April.
I think we've got it in June. I think we just had one
Not till June.
March 7th.
Okay.
So we got
All right.
another one coming up, I think, in June.
There we go. You know more than me. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna go listen to your podcast.
All right. Thank
All right.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.